Hello, welcome to this video. Fixing my microphone. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. For those of you who haven't seen these videos before, welcome. And welcome back if you have. My intention is always benevolence for all, in alignment with the highest levels of love, light, unity, and oneness. And so I'm just going to roll right into it. I was asked, guided, to go into a little guided flow. Might talk a little bit about the energies that have been going on. Some light language is going to come through. So I invite you to take a deep breath in, a long exhale, and set your intention just to receive whatever is most needed for you in this now moment. Or if you just want to know about the messages, just kind of get into that space of allowing, syncing up, so to speak. And as the time grids collapse, as the tables collapse, as the tables are turned, flip it, reverse it, we see a new spiral beginning, a new spiral of time. As the spiral of time develops, so to speak, it churns up old memories. It churns up old recollections. So they're showing me this as a collection of like in the collective, lots of collective memories. We invite you to recalibrate your frequencies. We invite you to recalibrate in your unity and realize that you are here to be undivided, undivisible, indivisible. Making the lines of separation invisible. Kia na ia ia da ha I ki wo shtia ya ha na he ki ia na he na I ku wa in shtia ya ek ia na ha ina wa ha wo ku. Many remembrances of the languages are being rebirthed. Many more forms of communication are forming. And they're showing me all these coils, like all of these collectives coiling up. And I'll talk maybe, if I have time, a little bit in this particular video about some of the synchronicities coming through. You guys, I'm warming up on this light language portion. It's definitely a different dialect than what I'm used to speaking every day. So thank you for your patience. What they're kind of sharing is that we're being invited to not put boundaries on how we're receiving our information. Not necessarily where we're receiving our information from. We want to use discernment, but what they're showing me is there's a lot of people that are still out there that are looking for their information from the newspaper, or they're looking for their information from one particular guru or teacher. And what they're kind of sharing, well, they're sharing a lot. With this time convergence, we're actually connecting to bigger and better forms and sources of information. And while some of it is old, like they're showing me a lot of things are being brought back, like the old healing methods or old pieces of technology that maybe were discovered by Tesla or discovered, brought forth from the collective by Tesla that are now just being reintroduced into our reality because now we're ready for it. We weren't ready for it before. Well, we were, but that's a whole other story, right? Many of you are tapping into your timelines of creative inventions. Many of you are recognizing that you were once the inventor. Throw away your self-judgment, your ideas that your future is fixed. Throw away your ideas that you are fixed in a particular destiny. For while your map has been laid out, there are many things that you may add or take away. And again, they've showed me lots of map drawings over past I used to call these channelings, but I'm just going to call this information sessions, because this is me, this is my higher self, and this is kind of what they're talking about. Like, your higher selves are connecting with you. Your highest aspect is what you really want to link up to. But all these versions of yourself that are able to connect through you are starting to link up, and people are starting to find aha moments more often, more frequently, faster than they ever have been before. For some people, that freaks them out because they think they're supposed to be getting it from somebody else or from someplace else. How can I possibly know what's best for me is the biggest question that's been coming through often across the board. Taking a deep breath in. Recognize that as you come online, as you reestablish these connections that were misdirected before, that were frayed ends before, that weren't really lining up with anything before, it can create a sense of befuddlement, a sense of, where is this coming from? Who should I be looking to for information? And we invite you to recognize that your information is all around you in the universal exchange of light language. So you guys, I just want to share, when I talk about somebody doing light language, it isn't necessarily that they're speaking. They might be, and light is information. So when I say light language, it's communication. It can be artwork, it can be hands. They're pulling through codes, they're pulling forward, bringing out information. Light is information from my perspective, from one perspective. These codes are accessed through many different frameworks, through many different ways of architecture, from many different presentations and presenters. There is no longer this one way to do things. There is no longer this one form of currency either. As we are coming forward in these new frameworks, so when they keep referencing framework, what they're talking about is blueprints. So picture a house, picture this earth. Whew, as a giant house, or better yet, a city. Picture the earth as a giant city, and there's cities, and they're all buildings everywhere. So it's kind of like, I guess, the movie, gosh, what was that movie with Matthew McConaughey? With all those different libraries, it's like the Akashic Record. But what they're showing me is that the build-out's there, the framework is there. We may not see it, but we will feel if we're in alignment with where we're supposed to be going, because it'll feel uncomfortable when we're not. And what they're sharing is, we're really being invited to use our discernment, because people out there, beings, architecture, technology, isn't necessarily in that full alignment yet. We're still going through this convergence. We're still going through this mergence. And what they're kind of showing me is this other timeline is kind of coming out of all of this. And so we have to choose what timeline we want to be on. With one of the biggest messages that was coming through for me that I'll go into a little deeper is sustainability. And that is so multi-layered and so multi-leveled. It isn't about agriculture and sustainability. It isn't about sustainable materials. It's about us sustaining our sovereignty, our energy, our frequency. And so the more that we can sustain and hold a charge, right, the longer our paths on certain timelines will unfold for us, and the easier we will feel in and if and when we are not in alignment with our highest and greatest good. You know, it's okay if we're in alignment with some good things, but they may not be our greatest and best, right? So it is about recognizing, yeah, this is a really good place to be right now, but there may be something down the road in this direction, that might be better for the future. But the more present that we stay in our harmonic, and that's a whole other video I'm going to talk about again, the more on track we will be. So this build out, literally think of nesting dolls, this build out that we are accomplishing through expanding our, we could call it auric field, expanding our energy, expanding our charge, extending out our magnetism to draw to us more of what we are resonating with. This is all also drawing out the framework for our future buildings, our technology, our relationship with animals, everything is connected. So it's a very multi-dimensional way of just looking at things. So as we build out our framework and as we recognize what isn't working, so again, they show me the architecture blueprints, and if you are building a house, you might decide that you made the bathroom looked good being over here, but realistically it needs to be over here, or it needs to be a few inches to the left. Whatever, it's being willing to erase that or to shift it a little bit so that it fits and not trying to continue butting our heads against the wall. That's the old way of doing things. So for some people, just even recognizing that that's what you're feeling is resistance is the biggest step to opening up to the higher selves, to the guidance team. Because a lot of times I hear in sessions, I'm not hearing my guides, or how do I hear my guides? Or I don't see any synchronicities, or I'm seeing synchronicities, but I don't know what they mean. So granted, every individual has their own, and sometimes I can play with that and we can see what that leads to in a message from my higher guidance team or my higher selves connecting with yours. But you guys are getting that information, and sometimes it just takes a slight shift in your perspective to then harness that information for it to sink in and to link up. So they're showing me a lot of people are just a little too far this way, and what they want is right over here. But because they're being stubborn, I did a video, 2 videos, my microphone wasn't working. It was working. I just didn't have it plugged in to the right unit, which is very symbolic of what I'm talking about. Line it up. If it's not in the right alignment, that message isn't going to get through. So sometimes things are purposefully put in our path that seem like they're blocking us or taking away from our time, but it's an important lesson for what it is that we are needing to align with, or where we need to align slightly, or maybe that message wasn't exactly in alignment with what needed to be shared in that moment. So I could go on and on. And it's being open to these references. It's referencing different, they're showing people like going to a different book than what they're used to reading. Recognizing if something is showing up over and over and over and over again, it's not about saying, yeah, that shows up for me all the time. It's digging a little deeper sometimes. And it's not necessarily over-analyzing and being analytical, but it's going, well, I wonder what else it could mean. I know this means my angels are talking to me. A lot of people refer to 1111, or I know this means I'm on the right track, or I know this means that there's something opening for me now. But it's also then not just shutting down and saying that's great and getting frustrated. Well, what's next? It's just being open. And sometimes it's just seeing out of your periphery. Have you guys ever noticed something out of your peripheral vision and you just kind of recognize that happened, and then you're like, okay, I saw that. And you don't worry about it. It's there. It was a process. It's something going on. You'll save it for later. Or maybe not. Maybe you just needed to recognize that your periphery was expanding. So we could go on and on with all of these synchronicities. This convergence opens up many layers of the psyche. So there have been many onions and many versions, and they're showing me a lot of spirals. And if you look at a spiral, and there's information on all of those spirals, and it's like all of a sudden they're lining up. Click, 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 click. So sometimes it might be slightly out of alignment and you might see it passing you by, but be aware that it's all the same spiral. So the more we can line up with when and where so that's a whole other video. They're asking me not to get sidetracked. They meaning my higher self, my higher team, my higher guidance team, right? And as we line up, we are less split apart by these convergences. We are less torn apart by our decisions. We are less at odds and more at ease with the path that we are choosing in this now moment, with the path that we have chosen, and with the path that is opening and expanding before us. We will see more of our circumstances that came forward that arose, okay, and so that's play on words, guys, with the shape of the rose, that arose in front of us, behind us, all around us, like a budding flower, so that we could learn more about ourselves, so that we would feel more into our own frequency expression, so that we would understand more of our framework. So lots of references about framework. And if you think of what a frame is, and if you think of working, it's what we're working within, our frame, what we see through, right? What we hold a picture in, okay? Framing out a house, you always frame it out before you fill it in. But we're being invited to keep expanding that framework as we fill it in and make it more of a plasma space than a concrete, it has to be this way. And they're showing me that a lot of the technology is an example of this. So a lot of the technology that I've been reading about and seeing in meditation is living. You guys, there's so much coming through about this, and it's tying in with so much that I was seeing and I didn't know what it meant. Now I understand technology isn't meant to be some robot. And while we can use technology and robotics in many wonderful ways, there is a way to, and I'm not talking about artificial intelligence, you guys, but I am. So I'm not going to get into all that. What I'm referencing is utilizing our own ability to, with Mother Nature, and seeing Mother Nature as a technology. And I don't mean that like it's a technology, it's an advancement, it's a working mechanism. We are technology, right? So oftentimes what we're utilizing, if we can work in oneness, it's a living being. It isn't necessarily about something that isn't alive and then putting it together with something that is alive. It's working with life as a technology, not working with something that isn't alive and then infusing life into it and forcing this to then work together. It's another perspective of this. So you guys are kind of showing me that ties in with that idea that we have to search outside of ourselves to fix things. We have to search outside of ourselves to fix ourselves, our bodies, this, that, and the other. We don't need, we can work. Everything that's alive is alive for a reason. It's a symbiotic relationship. The more we focus on that symbiotic relationship and not trying to take something that's dead and add life to it, it's working with the organic structure. And as we come more into that, we will then realize and recognize why our ancestors did what they did. We will also recognize why those, when we fell asleep, we forgot, right? The farther away we got from our truth. And now we're coming back into this truth and we're aligning more with it. Yet this is like so multidimensional. It isn't just one way. So it's the way that our ancestors did it, but that and then some. So I'm getting many angles here. So I'm just trying to kind of hone in on where we're going to go with this. You could just focus on your breath. So what they're showing me is the braid. My friend Candace and I have been having a lot of synchronicities on this, on the braid. I'm just laughing because it's a braid, it's DNA. So what they're showing me is timelines braiding together. So essentially when we pull together our knowledge from our ancestors, or let's say we're pulling together and we really connect as a multidimensional being, we're connecting with our future versions, which is our higher selves. We're connecting with our past versions of ourselves, which is also our higher self, if we think about it. I'm not talking about necessarily lifetimes on Earth, although those are important as well. So they're asking me to show an example. So if we're connecting with our Native American roots, and let's say you have Cherokee ancestors, or let's say your ancestral lineage is Hopi Indian, or let's move beyond that and say that in this lifetime it isn't, but you feel that strong connection with, for example, I have with the Aborigine, right? I'm not necessarily of that in my family, or not that we know of, right? But it's in my DNA, so to speak, because it's like a fractal or a holographic, right? Or so we're a hologram. So we carry all of this information lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, might be one perspective. So you could look at it from the earth angle. I was born, I have this in my family, Irish, whatever you've got, whatever, African, Irish, German, Dutch, Russian, whatever. And let's say these go back to ancient roots where the old ways, before maybe even the Bible was written, or before, and I could go on and on. Those old tips about herbs or foods or connections with the earth, those are coming back into play big time because they matter. It's important. We lost that connection. Now we're remembering it. That's why we're so aware of sustainability, right? Our ancestors knew about that. Okay. And not getting lost in technology is what they're saying, getting back to the roots, right? The other information is, now let's say there's a previous lifetime, maybe a future lifetime where you were an Aboriginal shaman, for example. We're remembering all of this information about our galactic brothers and sisters that they knew back then. All of the Hopi prophecies, right? All of this beautiful information. I was reading about the Norse mythology on some things. I mean, all of it, but ancient, anyways, you get where I'm going with this. The other message that's coming through about this is, let's say now there's that galactic flavor. Let's say you feel a very strong bond and connection with the Arcturian energy. And I'm just using that as one example. Maybe it's Pleiadian, maybe it's from Sirius, whatever it might be. It could be the elementals and dragon energy. And that is all converging. We've accessed a point, we've broken boundaries in a good way. Like we've merged boundaries essentially, and we've connected certain angles, certain geometries. We've interlaced and latticed up is what they're sharing. And in doing that, we're creating this architecture, this harmonious architecture with all of our ancestors, which means all versions of us and our soul brothers and sisters. So what's happening is this is bringing through lost knowledge. And so if you've got an aha moment, or you feel like being an artist and all of a sudden you're drawing all of this information, bring it. It's about living from our own genuine. I'm hearing salt of the earth. I'm hearing a lot, authenticity, authority, using your own authority. I am a divine sovereign being. And even if it just means you're starting a hobby about this, that's fine, because you're still bringing it forward into this reality, into manifestation, into form, if that makes sense. Lots of parallels are being drawn with certain tribal ancestry. Lots of parallels are being formed right now with the earth, and this is literal. So these are, again, these parallel realities. And what they're inviting me to remind everybody is, again, this has a ripple effect. So as we converge, I think I talked about this in another video, but I might have accidentally deleted the video, or I may not have recorded it with the microphone. So I'm going to repeat it. Some of this might be redundant. Is that as we converge these energies, it creates this ripple. Whoosh, right? As it merges, everything can feel a little sloshy at times, a little mushy at times. And sometimes we're not sure where to go with this energy. I've been feeling a little bit of that as well. Should I go here? Should I go there? And it's just about allowing that, allowing us to just kind of let that all settle, right? But it can be fun to see where each of these takes us as well. Okay. I'm hearing something about a ley line induction. back to the ripple. So they're showing me that this, there's a lot going on with all of the elements. It's like all of the elemental kingdom has woken, they've been awake, but it's like we're reconnecting with the elementals. And part of this had to do with ley lines. There's been a lot more grid work going on. As we conduct our electricity, so to speak, and this is a play on words because there's a lot of physics and science that go on behind this, we then allow ourselves to, it's like parts of the earth are drawn towards us. So I see this as a, like a lot of us were guided to go live in a certain place. We've been guided to move, or we've been guided to travel and just be all over the place. We all are in places of convergence. And so we're also doing that with the earth. So as we raise our vibration, and this is from one perspective, out to embody so as we raise our vibration, right, this is rippling up. So our higher self is expanding. So some people are maybe not connecting with people that have passed on in their life as much as they were before, but now they're connecting more with another star system. I'm using that as an example. We're being invited to really just open up. It's not just about being a medium anymore. For example, we also are, or it might be a medium, but connecting with beings in a different way. So all of us, we're being invited to recognize that everything has shifted and everything has changed, including the way that we interact with our jobs, with our friends, with our social groups, which is friends as well, with our, I could go on and on. So I kind of got a little bit off tangent there. Oh, the ley lines. So what I'm seeing is they want me to talk a little bit about where we focus our energy. Literally, we're manifesting very quickly, in case you haven't noticed. I find it really, and we're manifesting sometimes in strange ways. So I'm trying to give an example of this. There's so many. You guys know what I'm talking about. It could be a synchron. You might be thinking about the color red and a cardinal flies and lands on your doorstep. You might be thinking about a four-leaf clover, right? It might be in your view. And all of a sudden you find one, or somebody hands you a package and it's got a four-leaf clover on it, or a car drives by you and it's lucky, whatever. You guys, this is synchronicity. And so sometimes we go, well, I'm not getting what I want or what I ask for. And that may be true to a certain extent, but you are certainly getting certain things that line up with that. It just means you just have to tweak. Well, that's a whole other video, but you see where I'm going with that synchronicity. So if you're focusing on lack, more of that is going to show up for you, which we all know through the law of attraction. But what I'm also seeing is this is in reference to where we are located too. So I'm going on two separate, so I'll pull this together. So what happens is as we raise our frequency and as we raise our vibration, everything, our relationship with everything raises as well. So we are being invited to be responsible for our actions, how we respond to our environment, and what we're bringing to the table, the round table, right? And also, if we have something continuously showing up in our lives, it isn't necessarily, we're being invited to step away, and I'm going off on another tangent here, but we're being invited to step out of that karma spiral. We're being invited to say, all right, you're here. Instead of going, oh, it's obviously a lesson I still haven't learned, there might be something else to it, is what they're kind of saying. That's happening, I'm seeing with a few people in my life, as well as people that I've been working with in sessions. So some of the beautiful star seeds that I work with, they've got the coolest things happening. Some of them not so cool, seemingly so. But what's happening is in some situations, oh, they want me to talk about that too. So I'm just going to slow it down a little bit. Things are showing up to show us how quickly we're manifesting. Like we think our relationships are a mess. Uh-oh, here comes somebody else in our life to show us how messy it can really get. right? I'm speaking specifically of like partners, you know. Oh, I'm never good at finding men that are available. Up, here comes another one that's unavailable. So the universe, you see where I'm going with that? Flip that a little bit. The universe is giving you what you're asking or what you're focusing on. That's what I was trying to get back into. So that's one perspective. The other perspective is I find in the work that I do, if I'm focusing a lot on, let's say, um, I like to focus on a lot of different things. But let's say, for example, I'm focusing on heart, which we're going to talk about in another video. I'm going to go into that specifically. I get a lot of references. They show up for me about coherence, about the heart. Friends of mine will send me videos. Oh, check this out. Have you seen this guy? And a lot of times I don't even need to watch the whole video. I get exactly what I need in the first 5 minutes. And it'll not necessarily be something new for me. It'll be a validation from one perspective as to I'm on the right track. Or this is another way of looking at it. It will present itself and show up in a different form. So it can be in conversation, it can be in opportunities for me to work with starseeds who are very open in the heart, but aren't sure how to balance that. You know, it could be a myriad of ways. And that's because that's where my focus is. So if you are not liking what's showing up for you, change your focus, is what they're sharing. So I no longer wish to focus on certain things that I might have focused on a year ago. That doesn't make those things wrong. That was right for me at the time to lead me or to build out my blueprint or to build on to my blueprint to where I need to go now or where this mapping system has led me to or to certain circumstances that showed up for me during that process of creating that blueprint. I always think of schematics for an architecture or building. And they showed up and I went, ooh, I don't think I want that closet. That's a little too much in that closet for me. I'm going to take that and say, thank you for presenting yourself. I send you love and blessings. And now we're ready to move to a different phase of development. So that's, again, referencing back to relationships. And I'm bringing this up because I am seeing this a lot in the, for collectively, but as well as in sessions. And I like to bring up common threads that I see in session work because it can be utilized for, of course, the collective. But what happens in relationships is something might show up, and it doesn't have to be a relationship that's a love interest. It could be a sister or a friend or a brother or a mother, so it can be in any form of relationship that keeps presenting itself. Like it can be that a narcissist keeps showing up. Well, that's a good way to say, okay, that is no longer something I choose to see in my life. I'm going to focus on this. Doesn't mean you're ignoring it and putting your head in the sand. You're acknowledging that this particular person is a narcissist. That means I am no longer going to feed my energy into that particular individual. And that might mean cutting those cords, literally doing a cord cutting ceremony, visualizing cleansing with white light, all of the cords between and having those cords dissolve. It might be doing the Ho'oponopono, which I've talked about before. So there's lots of ways that we can do that and we can utilize that. So I've gone quite a few places. I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to do a video on sustainability. I'm going to do a video a little bit more about water. I wrote these down. I already talked a little bit about we are our guides. Our guides are perhaps, from one perspective, our versions of us from other lifetimes that came through, that are coming through to assist us now because we in other lifetimes assisted them, because everything is, I've already done things in my future. I've done things in my past, right? And this may come through in different lifetimes. This is all converging. So it's kind of a beautiful thought when we think about that in that way. If we're coming from an empowered place and we're feeling like, yeah, I was a shaman in a past life. Or, wow, are you telling me that this person I've been seeing that's been helping me is me? It almost, from a non-egoic way and from a place of not fear, where I was, what, 7 or 8 years ago when I heard this, I was like, ooh, I don't know anything, right? Things are a mess for me right now. What do you mean I'm guiding me? That's scary. I'd rather have Archangel Michael guide me. So that's trying it back into the beginning of this conversation. So oftentimes we're asking for help outside of ourselves. And while there are archangels that are assisting us, and there are other beings, I like to use the totem animals from the Native Americans. Those animals are an aspect of us. So we can learn from all of these different aspects, but what the biggest message that was coming through for me recently and in general is, let's focus from within. We can connect with our guides, but that doesn't mean that's our only go-to, right? And if you listen to any of the, well, not any, but a lot of the people who channel different ascended masters or different archangels and whatnot that are truly in alignment with their highest aspect, they oftentimes will say that this is the beings are an aspect. Like, I love Magenta Pixie. I haven't listened to her newest and greatest and latest and greatest, which I just haven't had time to focus on that. But I really enjoyed listening to her many years ago. And I love the fact that she says that the white wing collective consciousness of 9 is an aspect of her. Because it is, so all of these versions are an aspect of us, or we are able to tap into that collective experience as an aspect of that collective being because we're part of that collective. So I'm going to talk, I'm not going to go into we're a Blu-ray, right? I'm Blu-ray. I have Blu-ray frequencies through me. So I can connect in with those Blu-ray energies. And who else is Blu-ray, right? A lot of beings are Blu-ray. So I can connect in with certain archangels because that's the frequency that they're bringing to the table. That doesn't mean that I'm going to channel them. I don't need to. The reason I don't need to is because I am the Blu-ray. They are the Blu-ray. So once I recognize that within myself, I can then utilize that same energy that they're utilizing as a team, as a collective unit of oneness, if that makes sense from one perspective. And I'm not knocking channeling because I think it's beautiful. And essentially that's a form of channeling, right? We're essentially connecting in as a channel of divine love or a conduit for our higher versions of ourselves or these other fractals or frequencies that we are a part of. Okay, so I'm going to come back into focusing. So when we focus on something, we bring it, right? Bring it towards us and we bring more of that. So that's why in the law of attraction, she always talks about, don't focus on what you don't want, focus on what you do want. But I'm seeing also that it's not about what we do want, because sometimes what we think we want and what we really are, what really is in our best, highest, and greatest good and best interest is not what we want. So it's always like that song, you can't always get what you want. Sometimes you just really get what you need. And that is a beautiful way of looking at things because, and it brings me back into abundance. So oftentimes people are focused, boy, we're just hitting all these. I said I wasn't going to do a very long video, but I'm just going to keep going until I feel guided to. So abundance. Because you guys, this convergence, it's different. Sometimes it's mellow and I'm just all about love, light, language. I was like that this morning. Now it's get her done. Rev her up. So what happens is with this convergence, it is all of these different elements, right, of ourselves. And so there is this aspect of it's abundance. We're abundant in all of these things. And so if we're focused on why we're not abundant, it's again, get back into the heart. Get back into the heart. I'm going to talk a lot more about that. I said I was going to do that for about 3 months now, and I bring it up in almost every video, but I want to share eventually a little bit more of that. It is that love frequency. It is the frequency of, before I jump onto that next, right? It's all about this, right? But it's also about bringing it through, connecting that energy to the earth and through the crown up to our highest aspect. Connect to source all around us, connect. Set that pillar of light in, through, and around you of the highest frequency of love. And then from that space, am I creating from that space? Am I wanting something that is lining me up with something that isn't necessarily as expansive as I really can be? I may not know that fully now, but my highest aspect does. So that's why it's so important to connect with that highest aspect. In addition to that, it's also being in coherence or being present. So if we're constantly focusing on the future, we're not focused on what's happening right in front of us, what's unfolding. And it then can block or again line us up 3 inches out of alignment from where we needed to be. And I've seen that a lot lately with me. I'll see something and I'll go, ooh, okay, I was supposed to catch that a little sooner. But what was I thinking about? Oh yeah, well, I was thinking about the fact that I had to do this, this, and that. I wasn't being present. So we're constantly being called to action is what my guides are sharing. Okay, so lining up with this abundance that's coming in is so important. So it's important to take your 10 minutes to set that intention, focused intention. I now align myself with what is in alignment with my highest and greatest good. I am in alignment with my highest and greatest good, my highest levels of love light. I am fully abundant. I am receiving codes of abundance and acting from a space of abundance. You can do all kinds of mantras. You can do all kinds of affirmations. I've been doing them for, gosh, I can't remember when I didn't do them now that I think about it. I probably didn't do them 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, maybe. Anyways, so we've got this convergence going on and we tapping into these things are showing up for us. Our guides are showing up for us. We are our guides embodied. We are aspects of all of these things. And we're bringing out from us these different, focus. So if we're being called to focus on our artwork, let's not ignore that. If we're being called to focus on helping children, let's not ignore that. Even if we only do one thing with it, it's showing the universe I'm listening. So I was guided to jump on and do this video, and I really was in resistance because I had laundry to do. But it was so strong. I was like, all right, I'm listening. I'll do it. I am able to do this. I'm not out driving somewhere. I'm not with a client. So I'm going to do this now because I have this opportunity of all this information that's coming in. So it's acting on that and not saying I'll do it later, not putting it off, right? But also not going, when's it going to come? When's it going to be here, right? So that's that alignment. So as we embody and we recognize that we're embodying these higher aspects, and as these different opportunities come through to talk to somebody that we haven't talked to in a while. It might be that that person has something to share with us that is going to raise our frequency or awareness or our vibration or vice versa in a symbiotic way. So I'm touching on all of this really briefly. If you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to shout or to send me a question on these comments on YouTube too. Of course, if you have deep questions that are specifically related to you, you can email me or go onto my website for a session. But if it's a question about the collective or just about these energies in general, I'll be happy to do my best to answer those. Okay. And if there's something specific you'd like me to go into more detail on is kind of what I'm saying. So that I have the capability of in this 3D way of doing it. And I'll certainly share other teachers also that might be able to answer that question if there's something I can't answer. Okay, so synchronicity, collapsing of timelines. So what happens is when we are in that present moment, we're in our coherence and we are lining up, these timelines, I didn't really go into, I kind of jumped all over the place back to the braiding. So we're tying these things together. We're braiding our DNA when we're in coherence. That's a completely separate video. But what happens is we're merging together these aspects of ourselves, our higher aspects. We're merging together these parallel aspects as well that are then making this even stronger, so to speak, this us embodied. It's strengthening our, not in a tight way, but in an expansive way. So, they're showing me a bridge that is built for earthquakes. So if it's not meant, if it doesn't move, it cracks. So it's strong, it's built up, and it has that ability to flow. So it's like this plasmatic braid. So what happens is as we strengthen these connections with our higher aspects, these timelines that are conducive to our highest and greatest good, we pay attention to the synchronicities, we follow our heart, we listen when there is something trying to get our awareness and attention and we don't ignore it, then that deepens that connection. And it also lines us up with our star brothers and sisters. And I'm going to get to that maybe more detail later. I'll touch on that briefly. So the DNA obviously is activated even stronger, so to speak, and I'm saying that from a very non-scientific aspect. Our timelines are then able to merge in a more synchronistic and flowing manner rather than like, oh, I'm all over the place and being pulled in this direction. It allows you to kind of stabilize those energies a little bit easier on a more regular basis, which leads me into my sustainability. That's kind of what they're talking about, is it's not about attainability, it's about sustainability. So I'll get to that in just a moment. So then what happens is we collapse those old timelines that can't fit. It's like boing, boing, boing. Things are trying to get in that are not conducive to who we really are, to what it is we're lined up with. And that it's like that chain. You build this bond and it's so strong that those little pieces, those little gremlins, those little past relationships or particular situations in relationships no longer show up because they aren't fitting and they'll dissolve from one perspective. They will essentially go away. Collapse, dissolve, many different perspectives about what that's all about, but that's just an easy way to think of it. And then what happens is you form these connections with beautiful connections with people that you are, I don't want to even say supposed to form connections with, but that were lined up in your blueprint originally, or that you've added to your blueprint that maybe this person really could have been really good for you, but because you've grown so much and you've activated so much, that person is actually not quite where you've surpassed that. Now you're meeting somebody who really is even better for you. This could be in so many different forms. And so it's not like your old relationships or your old friendships are worse or not from an egoic perspective. Oh, that person's not awake. I've obviously surpassed them. That is not what we're saying at all, right? What we're talking about is just recognizing that there's just not a fit. And they might have some amazing aha moments that leads them into a totally different direction. And they might be wide awake, but that doesn't mean that you're still meant to necessarily stay together, stay friends, or stay connected on a regular basis. Like I'm talking family there, right? Or job or whatever. So then you separate, things are pulled apart, cell division, and you move on, right? But that might circle back around. It might circle back around this way, or it might circle back around this way, where you're passing, and then there's might be certain threads that connect, right? That pull you together, that tickle you and go, oh, I haven't thought about that person in a while. And if you think about it enough and you go backwards from one perspective, they might show up again in your life. Or you might just go, oh, I'm going to send them a little love and light. And then I hope they're doing well. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I bless them, or just, that's it. It was just meant, it was like a poof, right? A little poof. And so again, that leads me back into what we're focused on, right? So as these spirals, right? If you're thinking about it, and it was meant to do this, maybe it'll do this, and you might butt heads again. And then, what is it when you're rubbing against concrete or whatever? It's like it not quite fitting. Whew, I'm glad that's out of my life, right? So there's different ways of how, again, how much we build up our energy, our sustainability assists us in sustaining who we are and not being pulled apart in bits and pieces here, there, that person, this person. It allows us to be present. So back to our star brothers and sisters. I'm talking about our soul family here. So rumor has it, somebody just shared with me, Aluna Ash just shared a really good video about this. So I haven't watched it. I do like Aluna. I just, like I said, I haven't really been listening to a lot of people lately, but I'll get to that in just a moment. But so you might want to check out one of her videos if you want more details about what she has to share from her perspective. The way that I see it is synchronicity, soul family, soul brothers and sisters. And again, I haven't listened, but from the perspective of what I'm seeing and what I think a lot of us have been seeing for at least the last year, we start to really connect and link up with our soul family. Like before, what I was showing in that dandelion video, we've got this group of star seeds or soul family, and we've done what we needed to do. We grew together and then lift off. So I saw that as a multidimensional meaning, and I'll come back to that video again eventually because I really think there's much more to delve into about that dandelion aspect. But if you picture the seeds on a dandelion, they're all on this sphere. They're all these little seeds that make up the flower, and then they blow away. But they don't blow away. They actually form vortexes through the air that take them and lift them and carry them. So this dandelion seed is still from that same flower, and this one over here is too. But now they've moved and they're taking that information that was carried from that soul group and they've gone all to these other places. That doesn't mean that they're lost forever and they're not going to ever connect again. There's that thread that carries with them forever. So if that's something that we choose to keep in our architecture, in our blueprint, going back to what I was talking about earlier, in our building plan, we might decide to totally tear that wall down and compost the materials and decide that that's going to be more of this. And that's okay too. But I'm talking about we're connecting with people from past lifetimes, from future lifetimes, way bigger and beyond just this particular relationship. So it's like, also think about all of our extrasensory abilities have expanded. So our telepathy has really come on, our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, or whatever it might be. And so we're finding that we might be connecting with people that are finishing our sentences. And it's like more and more common. Also, I find that as a twin flame. But I see it as more of that braiding again. So I see the twin flame as even, dare I say, I see it in multiple layers. So I do see that twin flame that we've talked about. I haven't really talked about it much, but many other people have talked about the twin flame. I see this as a little different. What I'm seeing this as is this braided symbology of this coming together and this unification and this beautiful dance between star seeds, light workers, people that are of the same group. And this isn't a segregation. Oh, you're blue rays, so I'm going to go hang out with the blue rays. Oh, because I carry rainbow. I'm a lot of different rays. I've got a lot of different energies in me. I'm a hybrid. I'm a mutt, and that's for a purpose. But what those mutts and hybrids could do is help bring together that idea that I am only of the feline race. That's not what this is about. This is about all of that merging, that convergence, and saying, yes, you might have some of this Lyran energy, but you've also got this, that, and the other. So let's pull out all of that up and utilize it all rather than just one aspect. But at different times, those aspects will become more prevalent or will become more apparent when those certain aspects can be more usable based on what the earth is going through, the collective is going through, and as above, so below. And that might be a topic for a different video. So what's happening is we connect with these other soul brothers and sisters, essentially. This heightens our awareness, it heightens our creativity, and it actually not only expands our knowledge, but it also expands the collective because it can be felt. It's literally that ripple effect that then ripples out. Oh, Sorry, go out there, buddy. That then ripples out and can be, I can't pause this. So, and I can't, thank you. I think that's going to be it. But having said that, if you guys are feeling alone, play a little bit. Get out there and do something outside of your comfort zone, because there are other starseeds out there that are, I saw in not really a session, but I kind of went into a little bit of assistance with a friend of mine and a starseed who I've done session work with. And I saw her on a boat, rowing this boat, not feeling very alone, but being very focused. And across this waterway was somebody waiting for her, but they didn't know they were waiting for her. They were just sitting there, writing, journaling, kind of being in that space of pondering the universe and the earth. And in this working towards this, it was bringing her towards this particular person. And it's not necessarily a relationship. It might just be the fact that they're meant to connect. Like, I've connected with other starseeds. That doesn't mean anything. It might just mean that we are harnessing this energy and bringing it together in our own unique individual expression. Oftentimes I'll say, check out this person's video, check out that person's video, because of all those flavors. But we know when we find someone who is speaking our language, it's like, all right, we've probably done some work together. That doesn't mean that person is the end all know all. And that twin flame recognition, that's not what I'm referring to. What I'm seeing is a grouping together. So picture this triple flames, flames coming together. And this is a collective of, let's say, hundreds of people. But it might just be one person right now for you. I do feel that what we're doing is we're connecting with some sort of twin or triple flame, quadruple flame, whatever number is most suited to bring forth those rays, those energies, and those aspects of ourselves to the table. So in one way or another. And when you've met that person, right? Or those people, as I have. And this continues to expand. It's really a cool thing. All right, I'll go into more on this later. Blessings in love and light, you guys. Have fun creating. Drink plenty of water. Get into the water. Get out in the sun. Get barefoot on the earth. I mean, this is like an ongoing theme. Breathe. Do 2 minutes of breathing. I know that sounds very common sense, but you'd be surprised how often we hold our breaths. Breathe in for 5 counts. Breathe out for 5 counts. Do what we need to do to hold and sustain our vibration. And if we need to take a break, take a break. If we need to exercise, exercise. If we need to just veg out, right? So don't fight that current. There'll be more. I have so much more to share. In love and light, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Namaste.